I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Wow, what is up, Afterlife fans? What a way to end this season. My God, those two episodes are great. I'm Gabriela Casnilla, your host, and today we are going to be talking about season 2, episode 5 and 6, the final episodes of the season. But I could not do it alone. I have a co-host here who knows all the trivia about Afterlife, and she has all of the insights. Ashman, how are you feeling right now after those last two episodes?
I am so good, but I'm still on an emotional roller coaster from the last two episodes. Like, what a delivery. So much
Right.
happened, and truly, that's the best way I can describe it, an emotional roller coaster. I didn't know what was going to happen at any given point. It just kept coming and coming. Very, very exciting.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that emotional roller coaster. Oh, yeah, we're just going to break down everything that happened in these last two episodes. There's so much to talk about. We're going to start with Tony's dad's passing away, Anne and her relationship with Paul, which I didn't see coming, Emma and Tony and where they stand. The therapist may be being done with his job. Who knows? Matt tells everyone that Tony's dad died in the office, and I want to talk about their reaction. I want to talk about Daphne's and Pat's character development and their relationship, Tony's dad's funeral and how beautiful it was, and lastly, Emma and the saving grace that she is because Tony almost took his life again. So I wanted to get into that, and then we're going to get into some news and gossip, and then talk about if there possibly is going to be a season 3 for the special segment. Right now, let's get our overall thoughts. What did you think the last two episodes?
I mean, it was amazing, right? Like you said, we should start off with Tony's dad passing away, Mr. Ray Johnson. I didn't see it exactly coming, but I wasn't too surprised that it happened. Like he is so elderly, and we kind of see in episode 5 when he goes to visit his dad, he notices that he's not looking too well, and he even asks Emma, he's like, "Is he okay?" Like he looks a little weaker than other days. So for me, that was kind of like a like an alert right away, like, oh, is he not feeling too well? Can something possibly happen? And then next thing you know, his dad ended up passing away, which was really sad. But I think what I liked was is that Tony said he kind of had enough preparation time. He's like, I had 2 years to prepare for this. If anything, he's like, I lost him 2 years ago. So I'm glad it wasn't like a shock to his system, but still, like, a loss is a loss, and that was still sad to see.
Right. And I really liked how Emma told Tony like how special it was that he visited him every single day. You know, there's some people in there, she said, that don't get visits once a week or at least once a month or ever. So it was nice for Tony to know that he wasn't, a disappointment or he shouldn't regret anything because he did what he could, even though his dad wasn't really all the way there. And it was a nice scene seeing them, just holding hands and after it all happened and just spending time together and visiting, honestly. It was such a devastating thing. You're right. Like I wasn't expecting it really, but you kind of saw it coming, and it never is easy to see, a character go through that. But I mean, it's also different than Lisa, and a lot of people are reacting like he's going to treat it like it is Lisa. What is your opinion with that on how he's handling it differently?
Think it's because it's so fragile, right? Like even for me, Tony's character keeps me my God, he was just finally getting a little bit better, and now this has happened. And it's like sometimes these are the things that make people spiral backwards. So I feel like the general concern is, oh my God, is he going to be able to get past this? Or is this going to be him taking us one step forward and 10 steps back? But I thought they dealt with it pretty well. Like he was private about it, and he told his brother-in-law Matt, and Matt discreetly told the office. But Kath let the cat out of the bag. She just walked right over to him, hugged him, and everyone else just jumped on board. They're like, we just been waiting for an icebreaker for this moment. So I think
Don't you
it's
just
good
love
he
how
got
she's
the
the first
sympathy.
character? I was gonna say, don't you just love how she's the first character, even though he's like she's the one that he doesn't like the most. She's the first character to be like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh God, of course she is.
Yeah, she's always approaching him. That's why he's like, you annoy me the most out of everybody. But I agree, she's like most in his face than anybody else. But I'm glad
Yeah.
he was able to get the sympathy and not kind of be alone in it as much as he wasn't looking for it.
Right. And I really liked how Sandy threw the cake. Or no, it was pudding. It was pudding. I'm sorry.
Eh.
How she threw the pudding and she's like, "You look sad." It was like when he threw the cake at her. I thought it was full
Totally.
circle and it was totally nice to see like how much of a bond they have and it cheered him up. So that was really nice to see. We can go from there, talk about the visit to get all of his stuff, the dad's stuff at the home and going to see Emma and their relationship. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
how they left things off and how they kind of talked about, what's going on.
I thought that was a really interesting conversation and moment also. One, just looking at a convalescent home in general, it's like they're so used to the passing of people. All of a sudden, that room where this man once lived, he's now gone, and now it's being prepped for the next person to come in and take, their time of passing. So it was just really interesting to even understand how deep this series really is. Like it's so much. I've been using the word dark humor, but it's so much more than that. There's like pieces of comedy and dark humor, but this show is so insightful and so depthful because it really talks about just life in general. And afterlife is the perfect title because it's like what happens after we lose these people. So going back to just that room scene, that's really what I felt out of it because Emma's her job remains the same. She's going to get ready for the next person that comes in, and Tony's like, well, I guess I won't be seeing you as much anymore because now I don't have a purpose to come here every day. So I feel like they were trying to find that balance and what can happen, but it just wasn't the moment and time. So I think the best thing was is that they sat in silence. They both had tears and they just took that moment and they're like, we'll see what can happen. But Emma really is an angel. She offers so much support to him, and for him to be able to be that vulnerable in front of her, I thought was really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And to know that they're, every day is going to change because they saw each other every day, and that was his excuse to go see her and pop in and out, as he said. And that's not going to happen anymore. And I think that's why they were forced to have that talk, and he's so stuck in that Groundhog Day, he keeps saying, why can't we just see
Mm.
each other every day? I love this, but I don't want to change how it is. And she can't do it. You could just tell she's just falling in love with him and it's too hard for her. And that is kind of resurfaced again at the funeral too, which the funeral was beautiful. It was nice. All of his coworkers were there and that was super special. Like, we said they have such a special bond. It's like a family being at work over there. And the eulogy was really nice. And again, he brought up Lisa and that was such a beautiful thing too. But then he brings up Emma and is like, I could see why it's so easy to love her. And she's like, what the heck? Why would he say
Yeah.
that? And everyone's kind of like, wow, how did you feel when he said that?
I mean, it was a surprise because it was so public and he just made her like the center of attention because everybody knows his story. He's lost his wife. Now he's at his dad's funeral, but he zones in on one person and he respectfully thanks her, but also expresses his emotion. It's like, my dad really loved you and I can see why. And she lit up and he lit up. And I think everybody in the room lit up because they were like,
Yeah.
whoa, like there's really something there. Because at such a special moment, she was like the center of it all. I thought it was beautiful. Yeah, I became hopeful for them again. I'm like, well, this looks really good. I don't think a daily visit is going to keep these two apart.
Right. And I was kind of worried about that. I thought that, there was going to be some fall off there, but I guess not. And that makes me super happy. But also, I said, the last recap, I said that he kind of feels guilty maybe for dating. And he mentioned that at the funeral afterwards. He said that he feels like he's still being unfaithful to his wife when, that's obviously not the case. But I mean, how can he feel any different? It's so hard. So, I mean, but then we leave the funeral with Emma just walking away from him because she's probably so, frustrated and upset at, the fact that she can't change anything. It's like that feeling you get, like when you're supposed to be together, but there's just something in the way and I can't help but feel bad. But we get back to them after because there's a very interesting ending on how they leave off. I want to talk about, Daphne or Roxy and Pat's character, and their role in these last two episodes, with Tony and how they develop. Both of them find out that his dad died, and Daphne, she comes over and finds the pills, and that was hard for her. And she's asking if he's okay. And then he says something interesting, saying, "Oh, you remind me of Lisa." What did you think about that whole scene and her finding the pills? Did that worry you? How did you feel?
It did worry me because I'm like, we just don't know what can happen to Tony at any given time. And I feel like anyone that's close to him feels the same way. I was a little surprised by Daphne's reaction to him. Like, I knew they were growing in friendship, but she was so much more like heartfelt, emotionally invested in him. And she was really afraid when she came into his home and was like, "What are these pills? Like, are you okay? Please tell me you're okay." And it was almost like she didn't want to leave him because she just didn't know what could happen to him. And as far as him making that comment, I think he flashes back to Lisa so much. He sees Lisa in everything he almost does or sees. So small gestures like that just brings him back to, like, there's this woman that I loved, and that's how she has that's what she used to do. She used to ask me if I was okay, and then she would be okay. So I think there's just a reminder everywhere he goes. But what's so beautiful about his love to Lisa is he loves somebody wholeheartedly. Like, you could just see with everything he had. And that's why it's probably so difficult for him to move on, because we know that it's not being unfaithful, but he had given all of himself to somebody. So to have he's not even sure if he has anything left in his heart to give another person. So I think on one side it's beautiful, but life does go on, and that's what he's constantly being faced with now.
Yeah, and all these characters around him are reminding him of that every single day.
Yeah.
But there's something beautiful about that. And, and then after Daphne realizes, okay, tell me you're okay. And he said, "I'm okay." They talk about her relationship and Pat and how she said he's so funny, but she's worried about her past coming up. And that kind of makes me curious to know what is her past. I mean, he knows about her being, the job that she does, and that doesn't bother him. So I wonder how bad her past is, and if we're going to be able to see that later on in a different season, because I would really like to know about her past. Um, and Pat, he comes to the door with a postcard, saying, he's sorry. He pretends like it's someone else's mail. He's so adorable. He pretends like it's someone else's mail and says, "Oh, here, I have a postcard for you," and then it says, "Sorry about your dad." But I thought that was so sweet. And then Tony cried just because it was so kind. And oh God, that got to me. It was so beautiful. I just love how these characters have connected and are helping Tony get through such a rough time. How did you feel when you saw that Pat come to the door with the postcard?
I mean, he has such sincere friends. I mean, clearly, his wife was right about him. He is such a lovable person. And now that he has opened up a little bit, you can see how much everyone loves him. And I think he's lucky to have people that genuinely love him in whatever state that he's in. And I just hope he keeps receiving that, because clearly he is in so much pain still. And now, even with his dad, it's like, as much as he was prepared for it, it's just another loss. And can I just say how much I love the dog? I believe the dog's name is Brandy. I love
Yeah.
the dog so much. The dog is really his savior. We see it all throughout season one, all throughout season two. Every time he's ready to take himself out, the dog is barking, pulling, like just literally that angel stopping him from taking his life. And I don't know, for me, I'm like, oh my God, like, if there is a season three, will the dog still be in it? Because the dog is a little older too now. And who's
Right.
going to keep, saving Tony? So I just don't know, but love the dog and so glad he has the dog.
Right. She's so smart. It's his best friend. Like you said, that's my best friend. My first best friend was Lisa. My second best friend is Brandy. So
Right.
it was super cute. And I also wanted to bring up how Pat said that Daphne could be his wife potentially. I thought that was so sweet. And they're both, it seems like, on the same page as far as, their future and where they want to go. But, you know, again, Tony just reiterates wives are the best thing. Being married is the best thing. Being in love is the best thing. That's all you really need. And I think each person he's telling that to is it's going to make an impact on them, and I think it's going to change their life in such a positive way. Yeah.
I totally thought about you at that moment because last episode you were like, I would love it for Pat and Daphne to get married. And now he's
Yes.
mentioning her as her wife. And I'm like, Abby's going to love this.
I
Like,
was
this is
so
what she wants to
excited.
see.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was so excited. I was like, thank God they enjoyed it. Because they're kind of awkward people, like, not awkward, but they have that humor, and you don't know if they both enjoyed it or if they're on different levels, but they were on the same page. And hopefully there is another season so we could see their characters get married, because I would love that.
totally.
And, speaking of marriage, Matt and his wife potentially could be getting back together. I don't know. They went to that show together, and, that gave him some hope. But then he visited the therapist and told the therapist that, and the therapist is having a breakdown right now. You talked about the therapist the last recap. What do you think he's going through? What do you think changed his, opinion on his job title? He said that it makes him depressed. What do you think is going on?
Well, I mean, first, like, I just knew something was fishy about the therapist. He was anything but helpful, right? So if anyone is like that, they're obviously going through their own stuff and just pouring garbage on other people. So for him to say that, actually, I love what Matt said to him. He was like, "Do you have your own therapist that you could speak to?" Because he
Yeah.
was like, "You clearly need to. Like, you're talking some crazy stuff right now." I don't know what his breaking point is. I think it's not really his job. It's probably more of him not dealing with his own stuff. I mean, at the core of all this is love, and he doesn't have love in his life. Like, he just talks about being with random people and doing this and doing that and whatever his reasoning is. But I mean, I think he's really lacking and he's lonely, and maybe he had that reaction because Matt and his wife are going to reconcile. So when he heard that, that was just his trigger, because he's like, I listen to people talk all this stuff and then they go back with their loved one anyway. So I think he was just bitter. But
I think
yeah,
so too.
yeah,
I think so too. And again, he made it about himself, like always. Every
yeah.
meeting with every client, it's always about himself.
I would
So,
be
I mean,
charging him.
yeah, absolutely. And all of these characters are more therapists than he will ever be. I just maybe I don't know. Hopefully he'll change and become a better therapist if he doesn't quit his job. I'm not sure. But another favorite of mine, Anne, and how Tony set her up with Paul, or was trying to, is really interesting. It was nice to see. Anne said it's nice to hear you, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, talk crap about normal life stuff, but she said the other, said a B word. But it's nice to see him complain about normal life stuff, as just opposed to being depressed and Lisa and suicide and everything. And then he brings up Paul. Well, he brings up the show, and then her and Paul get to meet, and then they get to have a talk where they instantly connect. Do you think there's a connection there? I mean, they have a lot in common, as far as both of their significant others passing away, and their personalities are very similar. What do you think?
I totally hope so. I totally hope so. I started actually getting concerned about Anne because, as much as she consoles Tony, like, I question her state. She's always at the grave in the cemetery. So it's like, how is she doing with her own grieving if that's all she's doing all the time? That's all we ever see out of her. So I was really happy when Tony invited her to the review. I was happy to see her get out, kind of get amongst more people in a different scenery rather than just the cemetery. And even better was the interaction with Paul. I mean, another man, right? Like you said, he lost his wife, she lost her husband, and they both end up at that bench together. And I feel like it doesn't matter what stage in life we're at, just that additional support. So whether something comes out of it or not, but they're on the same page. They're the same age, or probably in the same age group. They've been through similar things, and I would love for them to just see that storyline develop, because I don't want to see Anne keep like sitting by herself and just grieving on her own, whether she knows it or not. But that is what she's doing.
Yeah, no, she absolutely is. And it was interesting for Tony to just volunteer himself to, play a like Parent Trap, and just set them up together. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. And that show, that review, that was such an interesting
Oh my
act.
god.
Like James, and then oh god, there's so much going on there. I thought it was hilarious. It was nice to put in, around such a dark time because that's when Tony got the text that his dad passed away. So it was a nice little scene to lighten everything up. But going back to getting pretty dark again, the very last scene in the last episode, Emma is the saving grace, I want to call it. That's how I kind of sum up that scene. But, Tony is watching that video of what he's said to Daphne about, his wife always saying, say goodnight, or I won't be able to go to sleep. And he's watching that and is about to commit suicide, or tries again. And then Emma comes knocking at the door. I was shaking personally. I was so nervous for his character because I thought he was going to go through with it. Even though the dog was barking, ugh, what were your feelings during that scene?
I mean, I totally understand on the emotional part. Like my eyes were filled with water. Like I was a blink away from mascara running down my face, right? Like it was there was such an adrenaline rush about it. I mean, it's so sad. He's watching this video, like you said, the wife says goodnight. He's talking to her like, yes, I did say it. So just the timing, the scene, and we see him take all those pills. And I thought he was going to put it in his mouth too. Like, I didn't know if season 2 was going to end with him having all those pills in his mouth. Like, I didn't know what to expect. Again, love the dog Brandy because Brandy's like, oh my God, he's about to do it. And just even an animal senses, right? Like he could sense something was wrong with his owner, or even the depression around it. And then you're absolutely right. Like the doorbell rings and it is Emma. And Emma, so sweet, like saying that I'll accept Groundhog Day. Like that's not even what she wanted, right? But she's like, if this is what it is, then I'm willing to take what you're able to give me. So I was so happy that he didn't do it. But honestly, like it just keeps me on my toes. Like I just don't know what's gonna happen to Tony at any given time.
Right. And the dog, I mean, wasn't stopping him. And that's what was heartbreaking to
True.
watch too, is she's just watching him and you're like, oh, you're gonna do it even though you have, so much to live for. And the dog's telling you no, basically, no, like don't. And yeah, Emma accepting Groundhog Day. I mean, that just shows you how much, she cares about Tony. And I'm hoping there is another season so we could see how that, continues. But it was such a hard scene to watch, because you've seen him in the last season make attempts, but the dog's right there or something always happens and it's not as serious. This one was so serious, and it seemed like when the wife said, okay, good night, now I can go to sleep, it's almost her last goodbye. I wonder if that's the last video. I wonder if that is, just the final, like, that's it, we're done, because that's the vibe that I got from her saying goodnight, that last one. She almost looked like she was about to cry, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So did you get that vibe from that?
I totally got that vibe. Like I questioned if that was the last video as well, because they're both saying goodbye. So it's like whether he knew, because she does say that. She's like, now I can go rest. Like now I can go to sleep. So it totally had that vibe. That may have been the last video. He probably knows it's the last video and he's like, there's nothing else to watch. And I agree, usually the dog is able to stop him, but this time the dog wasn't able to stop him. Like it didn't get his attention. He was so in his zone. And thank God the doorbell rang and it was Emma.
Yeah, she saved him completely, I feel like, or at least has put things on hold for a bit. I mean, overall, these two episodes were phenomenal. I mean, this whole season was great. I liked it better than the first one, just because we got to see a lot more of the characters, personally and their lives. And I really am hoping there is a third season, just because, this is the perfect balance of everything. You laugh, you cry, like I've said before. But these last two episodes were such a great way to kind of wrap up everything and leave the characters in such a good place. But now let's get into some news. I did, speaking of how it ended, I did find an article on digitalspy.com where Ricky Gervais talks about the ending, and people are wondering, why are you leaving it off so open, or why was it so dark and you're leaving it there without us knowing if there's going to be another season? And the quote says, he stated, "I don't like things to be tied up in a bow. I never have. I never liked it. Even in rom-coms, they kiss and it ends and they live happily ever after." Well, did they? Question mark. Because that doesn't usually happen. That's not statistically true. So basically the article, just talks about the season overall, but then states, if there is going to be a season 3, if there's not, who cares? Basically, Ricky Gervais says it's not realistic to end it on such a positive note all the time, and that's why it ended that way. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and the article overall is interesting, so you guys should go take a look at it. Again, it's on digitalspy.com. What'd you think of that quote?
I think Ricky Gervais is amazing. I have so much respect for him. It's like not even funny, because again, these are real life issues and he does such an amazing job. And I think he's right for what he's saying. Everything doesn't have an happy ending. So to end something and say he's cured and better now, that's not even realistic. And this show is pretty realistic to anyone having to deal with afterlife issues. And I think to some degree, everyone will at one point or another. So I respect his decision. And speaking of season 3, I peeked into special segments and I thought nothing would be more special than seeing if we would have a season 3 yet.
Absolutely.
And obviously the news is it's completely unknown. We don't know yet, but Ricky Gervais did say he has a 3rd season already under planning and a preparation stage. If all goes well, it will be released around the same time next year. So his mind's already cultivating and he has some storylines developing, but if it's going to happen, we can only keep our fingers crossed, because I'm so hooked on this show.
I know, me too. I will be so upset if all the characters leave off like that. I mean, it was a great ending and it wrapped up perfectly, but I just want to see more. I love these characters. I'm invested. 2 seasons is not enough. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This was so much fun talking about these last episodes. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and comment down below and tell us your opinions of these last 2 episodes. Ashvin, where can people find you on social media?
Totally. You could find me on Instagram at insightsbyish.
Awesome. And you can find me on Instagram at Gabriela Castanilla and Twitter at Gabby Castanilla. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll buzz you later.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.